It's the Doscinco Project.
Money pouring in, clientele growing down.
With your host, Doscinco.
Let's go!
What up, everybody? You are now tuned into the Doscinco Project, where we talk about business, entertainment, motivation, and mindset. I have a very special guest with us in the building today. In fact, he is an iconic person to me, okay? Because throughout the childhood growing up in the 90s, his books, as far as cover art, really spoke something, very special to me. This artist is known for illustrating the iconic covers of nearly 100 R.L. Stine Goosebump books. He has done over 300 book covers and paintings for different series, novels, and even video games. He's worked on projects with Stephen King and even did some illustrations for the hit children's television show, The Teletubbies. He's also designed the soundtrack cover for the Goosebumps movie featuring Jack Black. Everybody, please welcome Tim Jacobus. How you doing today, Tim?
What's happening, Daryl? I need you to come over every day and fire it up. That makes me feel good.
Listen, your resume speaks for itself.
Oh, thank you. That's very nice of you.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, again, I want to thank you so much for the opportunity of actually being able to interview you. And the reason why I sought you out was, throughout my childhood in the 90s, I lived in inner city Philadelphia, right? And so the books were everything to us as far as going outside of our 4-block radius, out of our neighborhoods, and actually seeing the world through stories. And one thing that really struck a chord for me, as well as all the other, youth during that time, was the Goosebump books. And we went after these books because of the covers. The covers were something that really spoke to us, and we went and we just started collecting all of them. So I got to thank you for drawing us into that world.
Oh, very cool. We were lucky at the time, R.L. Stine and myself, that there wasn't a lot of cool stuff coming out yet. And
right.
I'm assuming you had the Scholastic Book Fair
Correct.
At your school. So they were the main line of getting the books into the schools, and you would have the days where it was bring your money in and get yourself a book and a poster and all that stuff. So the fact that we were doing something that was out of the box, a horror series for kids 7 to 11 years old. Nobody had done that before.
Right.
And so when you go into your school library and you're used to seeing, a biography on Amelia Earhart, and all of a sudden next to it, there's a monster. I think you're leaning towards the monster. So it was really great to be kind of early to the game and be able to, craft something that was eye-catching and taking it directly to you guys.
Absolutely.
It's in your school. It's a book fair. To get your mom to take you to the Barnes and Noble bookstore, that's a bigger lift. So we're bringing it to you. So that really, really helped a lot.
Did you ever think that decades later, you guys would have such an impact? I mean, historic impact. Did you ever think about that?
No, this is all, we're in crazy territory. We're in, stuff that, so Goosebump, my tenure at Goosebumps lasted about 12 years.
Okay.
And then when it came to an end, and that's a really long run for an artist on a series.
Okay.
And, when it came to the end, I was like, wow, that was great. Great run, let's see what the future brings. But I thought that was it. Then we're done. And a lot of years passed. And it would still come up as kind of a, hey, were you the guy? But it wasn't a thing. About 5 years ago, we reached that 25-year mark of history since the first Goosebumps book came out. And almost overnight, there was this nostalgic kick that started to flare up, and where I went from, I've always got emails from people since the 90s. Well, not emails in the 90s. I actually got paper letters. And, so I started to get more emails, and the number of them started to really pick up about 5 years ago. Then the invitations to come to comic conventions.
Okay.
And that's when it really was kind of was a little overwhelming. I'm thinking, well, I don't know, is anybody gonna
Show up?
Yeah, show up or stop
Right.
by or anything. And the amount of people who came who were genuinely happy to see me was great. It was really great.
That's awesome. So let's go back to the beginning of the phenomenon, right? How were you able to connect with R.L. Stine, Scholastics? Like, what was that process? Like, how were you able to just link up together to create this movement?
So I had been in the book business for maybe 5 years prior to that, very slowly working my way in. And I had done books for a number of publishers, and Scholastic was on that list.
Okay.
I was doing some of their young adult books primarily. I did something for the older market, but my style seemed to fit better into the kid realm.
Right.
I had finished up some stuff, and never on a series. It was always one-off book covers.
Okay.
So this Goosebumps thing came along, and I wasn't busy, and it was kind of that thing where you're kind of sitting in the right place at the right time,
Right.
and they're like, okay, we need to find an artist for this. Tim's proven himself to be dependable, responsible. My work would be consistent. And they're like, oh, I didn't have a lot of horror in my portfolio at the time, but they're like, give it a go.
Right.
And a couple of things. Nobody was saying, oh my God, we've got this thing. It's going to be the biggest thing. Like, there was tons of apprehension. Due to the fact that nobody had ever tried to do horror for this age group. And they were afraid it would just be too scary. The parents would blow it off altogether, and the kids would reject it. And so there wasn't a lot of fanfare.
Okay.
To the point where they said, listen, we're going to try a couple of these covers. Will you do them for a little less money? Because we don't really have a budget that's that big. And we promise you, if this doesn't go anywhere, we'll put you on something good.
Right.
They literally said, we'll put you on something good.
Wow.
And I looked at it, and I was kind of ignorant. I didn't know who R.L. Stine was until they told me his name. Then I started to look around, and then I went, oh, this guy's,
Right.
he's been around and has got a real track record.
And this is before internet. So when you were looking
Correct.
around, you're talking to other people.
That's exactly it. There was, again, it's funny to try to get people to understand that, whatever happened inside your house,
Right,
basically.
exactly.
And if you ran into somebody at the bookstore and they told like crazy. So I was like, oh, okay, this guy is a real player. And, so we did the first, so they said, yeah, give it a shot. And they didn't pick me 100% at the beginning. They said, well, Tim, you do book number 1. And we have this other guy, Jim Thiessen, who's going to do book number 2. Okay. Jim Thiessen is a guy I knew all along. He was another illustrator that I saw, walking around town. And I met him a couple of times in some art director's offices. Very, very talented guy. And had a background in horror.
Okay.
So they said, all right, let's do this. You do book 1, Jim Thiessen will do book 2, which is Stay Out of the Basement.
Yep.
And I did Welcome to Dead House.
Wow.
So get done. And then it was like, all right, well, I kind of was like, well, if Jim's working on this, it's probably going to be
done for me.
It's I'm going, it's probably him. If I'm picking him. If you're giving me the choice, I'm picking Jim. Anyway, when we got done, I had done what became very noticeable in the Goosebumps books was I used real rich colors, where Jim's stuff was a little bit more of that diffused color, what you see on most horror stuff.
Right.
And when they got done and they put them side by side, they went, you know what? The real fear is this is too scary. Mm-hmm. Tim's stuff is less scary. So let's let him do the other ones. Now, at the time, there was only going to be 2 more or 4 more, so it was like, to me, it was like, wow, that's great. Wow. I know I got work for at least the next few months. This is very cool. And we did the first ones, and then it wasn't until I got to the book, and I forget what number it was. Maybe it was 4. Say Cheese and Die.
Yep.
And when I saw Say Cheese and Die, I went, oh, now I get it. This isn't just straight horror. This is kind of light horror, and there's some comedy in here.
it. Absolutely.
And years later, I found out that R.L. started as a joke writer. And he had his first book was a book of jokes. Okay. So he really wanted that humor element to be in there. And once as soon as you hear Say Cheese and Die, you go, oh, this is a joke. This whole thing's a joke. So I leaned into that as well and said, all right, we can be scary and funny, and let's be over the top and exaggerate things and distort things. So, to go all the way back to the question that was posed is I was really quite lucky. I was kind of sitting in the right place at the right time, and I just got swept up in this thing.
Wow. What book was it where you were like, okay, this thing is growing legs, and now it's becoming a monster, so to speak?
So we're now, so that we get through those first half a dozen, and then they go, we're going to do a few more, and which was like, okay, that's great. Same mindset. I got a few more months worth of work.
Yep.
This is awesome. And again, years later, I find out that the series didn't get off. It didn't just do like the gradual climb.
Yep.
It was very flat. There was discussions on maybe we just pull the cord on this thing.
Gotcha.
It's not really going. And somewhere, book 9, book 10, it just went through the roof. And that's attributed to you guys all going, hey, did you see the new books?
Yep.
I got this. Wow, you got this? Oh, that's cool. Oh, I go to the library and it's out. Oh, Mom, will you take me to the bookstore and let me get my own copy? And then once that we got into that cycle of there's a book coming out every month and you can go to the bookstore and get it, that's when things really started to bump.
That's awesome.
So the art directors are saying to me, hey, it's all going good, Tim, but my son obviously wasn't alive back then.
Right.
So exactly. I didn't have, there's nobody in the house that's reading him. And so I'm kind of isolated, and I'm just happy that everybody's happy. Okay. Art directors are happy. They're going, yeah, this is great. Don't worry. It's all good. So my ex and I go to visit friends who had kids who were of the right age. And we went to a dinner where there was 3 other couples and my friend and his wife and us. And they're going, so, this guy's name's Jerry. Jerry says to everybody, oh, Tim's an artist and, he paints book covers and stuff. And he goes, are you working on anything, that in particular that we might know? And I'm going, nah, I don't think you wouldn't know this. It's like, I'm working on this series called Goosebumps. And it was that thing where, like the record scratch where...
Are you serious?
Everybody went, are you kidding me? And they holler to the kids down in the basement, come up and bring your books. And all of them had the books. And I was just going, wow.
That's amazing.
This is cool. So it was at a friend's house before I realized, oh, this thing's cooking.
So it's not like the internet now where you can easily get your feedback, right? You get your feedback through likes, through comments, through shares and things that, the analytical part of it. Your basis of feedback during that time was literally talking to people and seeing their reactions to what you were doing.
Exactly. And then when I realized, oh, this is cool. Actually, again, my ex-wife, I'll call her Laura going forward because that's her name, so I don't keep saying that. It was Laura's idea. She goes, if this is as popular as we're realizing, let's go to the schools and talk to the kids. Nice. And let's put together a program. Now, I can sit at home and paint all day long.
Right.
Stand up in front of people and talk, that was way out of my comfort zone, and I was not into it. And slowly, she worked on me, and I was like, yeah, all right, I can, come on, it's just kids. Come on, it's just kids. yeah. And so started to do going to schools. And then when you see how many kids that, you do the, hey, how many kids, but raise your hand if you ever read a Goosebumps book.
Right.
And everybody puts their hand up. You're like, oh my God, this
Wow.
thing is crazy.
Wow.
So
Describe the process. Okay, let's take it back. R.L. Stine is about to come out with another book. He's currently writing. Describe the process from when you finally get your marching orders, so to speak. Hey, he's coming out with a book. We need this cover. How much time does it take? And then also describe your creative process in putting that together.
So, what is different about the Goosebumps scenario than other books that I worked on is all the other books were finished.
Right.
And now they're in the process of putting it together. RL's writing the book at the same time I'm doing the cover.
Wow.
So I don't have a finished book. He just gives me a short, synopsis of what the story's about. Always the title. That's his thing.
Yep.
You'll read it everywhere. He needs the title first.
Okay.
And then I would get anywhere from a paragraph of material to just one sentence.
Wow.
Yeah. This one's about blah, blah, blah. And people have said, oh, that makes it harder. And actually, that makes it easier.
Okay.
So as an illustrator, when I would do someone else's book, I would read their whole book.
Mm-hmm.
Then I'd get all these little details, and I'd be compelled to put all those details into this piece of artwork and not like it really
Kind of constrains you.
constrains you.
Gotcha.
Where if you just go, hey, this one's about a family of skeletons barbecuing. Okay. So it opens it up and you get to kind of do whatever you want to do.
Okay.
So first thing I always did was sit down and I would do thumbnail sketches, which are little tiny sketches. They're 1 inch by 2 inch. Wow. And it's the equivalent of a writer doing bullet points.
Okay.
So I'm just doing pages, and you don't make them look good. I only have to be able to go, oh yeah, I know what that is. I know
Right.
what that is. And you just start to do pages full of them.
Okay.
And you go, okay, I got that idea. Go to the next one, go to the next one. And as you start to do pages of that, there's certain concepts that keep floating back to the top. And you're going, all right, there's something here, there's something for that.
Okay.
So I would always pick out 3 and of those ideas and draw them bigger. I used 8.5 by 11 pieces of paper. So Goosebumps format is square. So 8 by 8 would be the sketches. And I would draw them relatively detailed. Back then, no digital. So I would fax the sketches over.
Wow.
And the piece of art on my end compared to the piece of garbage that came out the other end was pretty, but that was high tech, and we didn't have to mail in the sketches. So they would look at the 3 sketches, and generally they would just pick one, or they would go, hey, like the background in number 2, can we use the main guy in one and put it? Absolutely.
Okay.
And with other publishers, there's usually a lot that goes on at that stage.
Okay.
A lot more feedback. These are okay. Can you do us another? Then turn that in and go, yeah, well, can we work on,
Yep.
We're on a 1 month cycle.
Okay.
The books are all coming out the first of the month, every month.
So within that month, I mean, you're talking about writing, editing, getting the illustrations, putting it all together, then putting it out within that particular month?
Within that month.
Wow.
So it was more like, that's more along the lines of magazine cycle.
Right.
Periodicals.
Okay.
So RL had the heavy lift. He's writing a whole book.
Yep.
What was nice, though, is due to what you exactly said was, there's no fooling around. We can't be spending too much time playing with this.
Right.
Do number 2, get on it. Start working on it.
Okay.
Go right to the final painting. I could do them in between 30 and 40 hours.
Okay.
So in a week, you have a finished piece of art.
Wow.
I get done. I package it up, run over to Federal Express, get it in the truck. The guy would deliver it to Manhattan.
Wow.
And then they would look at it. And again, this doesn't happen in any other series. They would go, okay, that's great. start the next one.
No way.
Where always, every other cover I ever did was, okay, yeah, can we put this in here? And can you make that a little greener? And can we do this? And, they always sent the painting back. And you always had Goosebumps, Just hurry.
They gave you your creative freedoms.
I had tons of freedom.
Wow.
So that's when I said it was kind of flat at the beginning.
Yep.
So when it's flat, not a lot of people are looking at it.
Okay.
And to their credit, when the thing took off, somebody somewhere with some real authority just said, don't anybody touch this.
Let them do what they do best.
It's working.
Yep.
Don't mess with the parts. I don't care. And, until it's broken. And it just climbed and climbed and climbed. And,
wow.
I don't know what the real numbers are,
okay.
but it's between 380 and 400 million Goosebumps books sold.
Amazing.
That's
amazing.
Those aren't even numbers
right.
It's one of those things where they put the books in the end, it goes around the world, all that nonsense.
It's like nowadays, you'll be happy if you sell 10,000 copies,
Heck yeah.
Can you imagine over 400 million copies?
No,
It's nuts.
no.
Now, when you were making these changes, right? Like, say, for instance,
Yeah.
the executives, we would like for you to make this change this background. Obviously, you were painting during that time.
Correct.
So, did you have to take a new canvas or a new
Oh,
print
no. So I worked in acrylics.
Okay.
And I purposely worked in acrylics for the reason that it's very repairable.
Gotcha.
So acrylic, you can paint any color over top of any color as long as you put a base down. And
right.
So if it was a watercolor, you're throwing that in the garbage and doing another one. Okay. So everything was totally salvageable. I never had a piece of art or a cover art where I had to go, this is garbage, gotta go, we're starting fresh. Never, ever in all the years I've been doing this have I had to do that. There were ones early on where I went, oh, that's a piece of garbage. I'm throwing that one away. Nice try. We better not let anybody see that.
Who were your artistic inspirations when growing up or even doing these, minus the Goosebumps, anything overall? Who did you look up to?
When we were growing up, again, non-digital world means that all your music is on vinyl. Okay. And album covers were where that was the gallery for some of the coolest art that's ever been created. And we all had these massive, we all spent more on our stereo than we spent on our first car. And our album collections were, it was a source of pride. Right. And in there was just endless amounts of incredible art. He's still alive. There's a artist named Roger Dean. Okay. Roger Dean did all the album covers for a band called Yes.
Okay. Yep.
And his work was just mind-blowing. And it was so good. And I would just, you stare at it endlessly while you're playing the music that you like. And you get their names from the liner notes, and the liner notes were the early internet.
That was the kids. So to the camera right here, I have my children here. They're watching this interview. They have no clue what it means to go to the record store, purchase the item, open it up, look through the books, look through the credits and everything else. None of that. Everything is digital now. So you admired this
so this guy's at this point, so now I'm doing art in high school, I'm going to art school, and I just really start to study what this guy's doing. And the big takeaway from him, which obviously came into play with the Goosebumps art, is at the beginning you paint what you see and what you know. Okay, right. When you're in art school, it's the famous, okay, we're going to do the fruit in the bowl. Mm-hmm. These are great exercises. Right. But Roger Dean is painting stuff that doesn't exist. Mm. And it was like, if I wanted to do that, the bowl of fruit, I could be a photographer, or my art would have to be so unbelievable to make that pop out better than, but
reality.
Right. But the stuff that's going on in my head, that's where I can get people's attention. Mm. And so the idea of painting stuff that doesn't exist and branching out and doing that fantasy, maybe sci-fi, however you want to describe it, that became like, like that was the light switch. So, it was his inspiration. And I have pieces where when I don't have copy. Well, I do have a copy of a Roger Dean piece of art that I did when I was like a sophomore in high school.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah. But I have other pieces where if you take it and you go, check this out, and then you get another piece of Roger Dean art and you put it side by side, you go, oh, wow. It, I always, I liken it to, learning from a great chef.
Gotcha.
Where I can make this stuff, and boy, he's got a great recipe there. Mm-hmm. I'm not doing. I kind of know what he used in his recipe, but I'm doing my own thing. And I hope if he ever saw anything I did, he would go, "Ooh, there's cool. Influence there. I like that." As compared to, he's he plagiarized me.
Right.
That would break my heart.
So you mentioned, by the way, boys, if you want to sit down, you can. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. Sit on the couch, sit on the chairs. Yeah.
Otherwise, I'll be behind these cameras all day. So you mentioned, having a lot of things in your head, so to speak. The imagination runs wild, right? You've composed over 300 plus, artistic expressions through products. Where do you get this? How do you keep on churning these things out? Because you'll have creatives that may be a one-trick pony or can produce 10 great artworks, but you've had over 300. How do you keep this thing going?
Well, you go back to what my job actually is. My job is to create other people's ideas.
Right.
So I've had the sheer luxury of having all these people go, I have an idea. Mm-hmm. Can you bring it to life?
Okay. That's
way easier than waking up in the morning and go, what do I feel like doing today?
Gotcha.
So, then you get some the crazy. I always like stuff where I was like, oh, I never thought of that. Mm-hmm. And, that's going to be hard. Those are the best ones because, it forces you out of your comfort zone. Yep. And it's like, all right, I gotta really work this thing up to get it to where it's right for them. Wow. And, and it's funny. So even though there's been many, many, many illustrations, it's still exciting because there's still that. There was an absolute fear early on.
Yep.
I don't know if I can do this.
Right.
I don't think, and then when you start it and it's not going great, you're like, oh no.
I knew I should have took this job. I knew I should have.
Exactly. I should have been an electrician. But now there's less of that fear. Not that I always feel comfortable with where the art is at the beginning, but you always go, I always can get it together. I always can pull it out of the fire. I always can turn the corner and get this thing to work. So it's less fear, more excitement. And I'm still excited by every piece of art that I do. And it's still just me and the art and downstairs and just sitting there. And then there's a point in the process. It's about 2/3 of the way through where you go, oh yeah, this is really, this is working. Uh-huh. I know where this is going to go. And it only, like, that excitement doesn't last all the way through to the end. By the time you get to the end, it's like, all right, I just have to finish this. Like, gotcha. The cool part is in here, but now you just got to clean, it's like if you were a contractor and, you got to sweep up and clean up through the kitchen after you've done rebuilding the whole kitchen. But, sweeping part's not that much fun, but you got to finish it.
It has to get done.
It has to get, so you get the big ta-da.
Right. What, and it could be anything. It doesn't necessarily have to be Goosebumps. What would you say would probably be the best cover you've done personally? Or the one that really means a lot to you?
That's a hard one.
Okay.
all the Goosebumps are their own thing.
Yes.
And what's cool is now meeting people, and do you have a favorite Goosebumps cover?
I like the tower. I think the tower.
Night and Terror
yeah,
Tower.
the Night and Terror Tower.
So
yep.
everybody has one,
Yeah,
and
true.
they're all different. And I like so many of them. There's a couple where I go, not that they're bad pieces of art, but if I had a chance, I got another idea.
Gotcha.
And it's like, oh, that would have been better if that was like this and that was
Yep.
like that. So, but I have this piece. I rarely paint for myself.
Okay.
Like I'm waiting for, I'm a hired gun. That's what I'm
Right.
supposed to do.
Yep.
And I'm always busy. So when I'm not busy, I generally don't draw and paint.
Gotcha.
I'll do anything else. I like
Yep.
to get outside. I like to, my son just picked up a 1960. He's learning how to weld.
Oh, okay.
And his teacher came in with this old welder, and it's in kind of pieces.
Yep.
And so we're putting it back together.
okay.
So a little mechanical work
Right.
is I like that. It's completely different. I'm using different parts of my brain
Absolutely.
to figure stuff out. So I've done a very few pieces just for me.
Okay.
And I have one, and I'll send you a copy of it so
Yeah.
you can put it in this story.
Okay.
But it was 3 rejected ideas for other books, and they were kind of sitting on the desk, overlapping each other.
Right.
And when I looked at them, I went, oh my God, these would be cool if I put them all together. And I have this piece of art, and it's hanging over my bed in the other room, so you can see you'll see the
Okay.
original, and I'll send you a copy. And it's
Okay.
just and this one has some real Roger Dean flair to it, and so that's a piece I like to show because everybody knows the Goosebumps, and when I
Right.
pull this one out, everybody just goes, "Oh, that's
different.
that's different." And
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool. So.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Some flying killer whales in there.
Yeah, that would be cool. Now, have you ever thought about maybe, taking your artwork, putting them in the gallery, or, maybe, doing a tour with your artwork? You ever thought about that?
So,
Or have you tried that?
so early on, everything that wasn't Goosebumps, it's up in. So the way the book business works
Yep.
is you paint it.
Yep.
Back in the day, you painted it, you turned it in, they took a photo of it, they got everything done. The book went to press when they were fully sure they didn't need to do any reshoots of the art. They
Okay.
give you your art back.
Gotcha.
So I have an attic full of paintings.
Oh, wow.
But the Goosebumps, they didn't want to do that because they knew that this thing's taken off. We're going to want to do, we're going to do reprints and make
Right.
every product under the sun paraphernalia that we can think of. And we're going to be reshooting this art on a regular basis.
Gotcha.
So we would like to buy, we will pay you more, but we're keeping that stuff.
Okay.
So they have all the original Goosebumps art.
Oh, wow.
And some of it is cool, very
Yep.
cool, is hanging in the lobby at the Scholastic headquarters in Manhattan.
Oh, that's awesome.
But then the rest of it is somewhere in
Okay.
storage, I'm assuming.
Gotcha.
And I haven't seen them since the day I finished them and put them in the box and shipped them out. So I would love to see them again.
Yep.
And I have reached out to Scholastic about a number of things, but one of them leans into what you were saying. I was going, look, I know, these are yours,
Right.
but what would be cool is people should see these.
Yeah,
And I would love to
absolutely.
take them out and take them on a tour.
Right.
And then, do a number of places, maybe a couple of cities, and then I'll bring them back, and we'll put them
Right.
back in the closet again. So I have to go and revisit that again,
Okay.
because I brought it up and it was lukewarm at best.
Yeah, of
because
course.
you got to remember all the people over at Scholastic.
They're no longer there. The
The
ones
ones,
that you can-
all my contacts
they're
are
all
long
gone.
gone.
Right.
But what's good, it's people your age, at least they know who I am.
That's the good thing.
But they all have other jobs. Like
Right.
this is a side thing and they would have to be working, like everybody's busy. So to go, hey, I got this side gig, you want to help me? And if it's not, they would have to take it on with a passion, and it's hard. It's
Yeah,
very
it is.
hard.
Now, would you say, back then they would purchase your art. That doesn't give you the right to do copyrights, or it's kind of like the ownership versus
Correct.
licensing.
Yes.
Has that changed quite a bit in the publishing world, where now you can license your art to these publishers, or the publishers just need to buy it outright?
You get the publishers. So when you do a book cover, you're doing what's called a work for hire contract.
Gotcha.
And you're basically going, it's yours.
So it's like a commission piece, basically.
Yes.
what they're doing.
And if you think about it, yes, the Goosebump stuff was wildly successful, and I did 100 of those. There's 300 other ones that weren't so wildly successful, and I got my money, and I don't know if they did. So they put they're putting the machine in place, and they're going, yeah, you can, we were paying you a fair price, and if you feel it's fair, that's what we're paying you, but it's ours. And rightfully so. Now, it would be great if I owned the rights to it and I could, do whatever I wanted.
Right.
But that's not the case. Here's a good example. There is a book that came out last year called The Art of Goosebumps.
Okay.
And it features the early years of Goosebumps and my art.
Yep.
And, it has all the classic series, 63 of those, and the series 2000, which was the series that came after it. And again, this is my 100 pieces of art, all in one book. There's a publisher in South Jersey called Dynamite.
Okay.
They reached out to Scholastic and said, hey, we want to do a book on Goosebumps.
Right.
They said, okay, you got to pay, there's a licensing fee.
Right.
And when you do, then you can do it. Okay. Now, in that scenario, they don't have to even call me up.
Because your job was done the moment they paid you for that
And
piece.
once they buy the licensing, it doesn't matter. Like, I can't go, I don't want you to do that, or I want you to do this, and I'm a fan just like everybody else.
Right.
So when they reached out and they said, hey, we can't find. So I'll give you the more longer version. So early on, they were like, we're having a hard time getting all copies of what we want. They were thinking about doing all the Goosebumps art, including all the stuff that went on after me.
Okay.
And I think the whole thing just got too top heavy for them.
Okay.
So when you buy a license, you only have a window of time to use that license.
Right.
You got to give it back then if you're not. So they were getting close to the end of the ownership of the license. And they called a friend of mine who had worked with them before, not knowing he was a friend of mine.
Gotcha.
And said, hey, Mark, we want to do this book.
Okay.
And he called me up all excited. He's like, oh my God, blah, 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 blah. And I was already over it.
Right.
Exactly. So I was like, yeah, I really, it's great. It's nice. It's flattering.
Right.
I said, but I said, I'm not into it.
Right.
And then the phone kind of went dead. And I went, oh. I said, you can make some money at this, can't you? And he's like, yeah. And I was like, all right. I was like, this will work. This will be a very good piece for me, even though it's not something I'm going to reap large financial reward. But it puts my name out there. It's great for promotion. And I said, and I've seen this guy design books before, and I know he's going to, and he put in so much time. He probably made $1 an hour. For the amount of so what we did was we went in the attic and we pulled out all the old files and pulled out all the original sketches, because I didn't want to have the book just be reprints of the cover art.
Right.
So it's
kind of the story behind the cover.
Every double page spread is, here's the finished art, here's the 3 sketches, here's a little blurb about the whole thing, and then he designed it to look totally Goosebumps, and the book came out fantastic.
That's awesome.
But yeah, so again, I could have been, they could have done everything without me, and I would have just one day just went, oh, look at that, there's a book about me.
You ever thought about maybe could you hear about this, especially in the music industry, where you have a lot of artists that go and they buy back their masters, right? You ever thought about going back to buy back your original
Yes,
artworks?
yeah. Again, and it's funny because I presented multiple ideas.
Gotcha.
When I said, "Hey, let's take it on tour."
Right.
I also said, "Hey, what are we talking about here?"
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to have them, but 100 of anything with any significant amount of money attached to it is a lot of money.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of money.
Whether they would want to sell them to me or not, I don't know. I think they would on some level because now the world's digital.
Everything's digital.
It's already right. It's already copied. They have
Right.
everything they're going to need. I'm not going to do anything wild with it, and that's going to be insulting to the brand. But I would like to. It would depend what the numbers.
Yeah, what the number exactly.
Because then I have to go. All right, you just financed the farm. What are you going to do other than it's be really great to own them? Where do I go with it at that point? They may, again, what are they selling me? Just the physical property and not the licensed part of it. So now am I going to be restricted in what I can do to it? Again,
yeah, everything has its stipulations depending on.
And these are all just long conversations, and I would like to have them, but I'm not a rear view mirror guy. It's just, what's new? What do I got that's new? And I'm creating stuff that's new every day. And that's more fun than going, oh, what can I do with this? I would love to, but it doesn't get as much, and it's just me. I run around like a chicken with his head cut off, and sometimes you just got to go, I'm going to sit on the couch and watch football.
That's it. Talking about football,
well, there
Sunday,
you go, brother.
we have the Eagles.
I know. Listen, you're talking to the wrong guy about the Eagles. All right,
Right.
I live in New Jersey.
I
I'm
hear
a
you.
Giants guy,
I hear
and
you.
the years and years and years of
The rivalry. I get it.
Is unbelievable.
I get
it's
it.
unbelievable. So yeah, that's I'm not one of those people who can't appreciate though that you guys are playing incredible football.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
there's nobody like they're not there by any fluke or by any luck. So,
so true.
Again, they're playing one of the all-time great quarterbacks and one of the all-time great coaches. You guys had him.
Yeah, we had him.
And,
absolutely.
I'm old enough to remember all that stuff.
Donovan McNabb.
Absolutely. So it should be exciting.
I think it's definitely. It's a great time, especially for the city. I think after we won the first Super Bowl, we didn't have anything in over like 40, 50 years. That's or what have you. So now within 5, possibly get 2. We'll see what happens.
Yeah. It's all cool. It's all cool.
So let's talk about, so I understand you also did some cover art for a Stephen King novel.
Yes.
Right? Describe how that process came about. Did you get a phone call and say, hey, Stephen King's looking for you? What's going on?
No, but so I went to art school right after I went to high school. I took a year off and I hitchhiked around with one of my buddies. We went around the United States.
Okay.
Something that you could do back then.
Right.
And you can't do anymore.
Can't do it now.
So I went to art school, and at the time, Stephen King was Stephen King never lost any of his fame, but he was just emerging. And we're talking late 70s, early 80s. And there was nobody bigger. People were just like, who is this crazy? These things are incredible. Right. My parents are reading his books. And it's just like, so as a, 18-year-old in art school, you were like, I want to do Stephen King, like if somebody says, where do you want to, that was as big of a, that you could imagine. Wow. I want to do a Stephen King cover.
Yep.
And you know who Frank Frazetta is?
I do not.
Yeah, so he was an illustrator
at
the time, and it was, I want to paint like Frank Frazetta, and I want to do a Stephen King cover. And we all had we all had to spit out the same words. So over the years, they've repackaged Stephen King's work a number of times.
Okay.
So what they did, this was in the mid-2000s. They were repackaging Salem's Lot, The Shining, and I always forget the third one. It's not important.
Okay.
Into a big hardback. And Stephen King books were big to start
Well,
with.
they're huge in general. I mean,
Right.
they're like bricks.
Right, exactly.
You know?
So this was a brick and a half.
Wow.
And it was the nice oversized hardback. And most of what I've done throughout my career is paperbacks.
Yep.
So when you get a chance to do a hardback, that's kind of cool.
So what's the difference between the two then?
So it's different markets. So back prior to the internet, paperback books were a major form of entertainment.
Gotcha.
Because there's 3 channels on the TV. You know, movies, special effects are terrible at best.
Right.
But you could get a paperback novel for $4,
Yep.
and everything went to paperback. So every month, hundreds of titles coming out every month, and you could pick your genre, and people would take them to the beach, and just paperbacks were everywhere.
Gotcha.
They were they were the quick shot.
Yep.
You're usually, it's either there's a paperback author who writes, like direct to TV,
Right.
or it's a established person who the book already ran and it's hardback, and now they're going to paperback to get some more sales.
Gotcha.
So I'm playing in that end of the pool. Hardback books are sold by author name.
Oh,
Everybody who's investing in that nice piece that's going to go in the shelf, they're looking for specific authors.
Gotcha.
And they're good, and they like them, and they don't, they're going, I know I like, Stephen King, and I'm going to buy everything that he does, and I'm going to get it early, and I'm going to get the nice hardbound edition. The repackaging was cool. They let me, again, they gave me some freedom, and we decided on doing The Shining as the art for the cover. Yep. And at this point, the digital world is now happening. So and to this day, I still draw in pencil all my early sketches. So I got this sketch done, and I had an idea of what I wanted it to be. Yep. For The Shining, and the character was going to be standing outside the house. It's snowing. He's very centrally located. He's got his hands open, and there's blood on his hands. Okay. But it's a pencil sketch. You can't see he's got blood in his hands, so he's just standing there, and you're going, what? What's going on? Yeah. So I was like, and I took out the paint, and I just painted the red on his hands. Okay. Excuse me, so they could tell what was going on. Shipped it over to him. And again, everybody still kind of knew me from my Goosebumps days and all my color, rich palette and all that. So shoot that over to them, and they're going, oh, this is cool. And I was like, all right, well, let's go to the final. And they're going, I was like, so, what colors do you, and they're like, no. Black and white with just the red on the hands. That's it. That's what we want to do. And
that's easy.
Yeah. Well, it's easy, and I love black and white.
Yeah.
I wouldn't say I prefer it. I really like working in black and white because you can fool people, or you can look over here. You can do stuff with color that will just get people's attention. Right. But your art has to be rock solid if you're just going black and white.
That's true. So because that's the focus.
That's it.
Just the black and white.
It's the image. It's the image. So to be able to do it, I was thrilled. Okay. And then whenever there's a figure in my books, I would always pose somebody and get a picture. I can draw characters, but they'll always have that cartoony feel, and sometimes that's what I want, and we're going with that. And then there's other times where I want that person to be realistic enough where the viewer goes, ooh, that That's real.
Right.
So again, I've used every family member and everything else, but on this one, I was like, "Where's that timer on that camera?" I'm getting in this one. So not only did I get a chance to paint the Stephen King cover, I got to be on the Stephen King cover.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
Wow. So your image is on the Stephen King book.
That's me. It's my
Millions
it's
of
my
copies
jacket.
out,
It's my
everything.
hoodie, sweatshirt,
That is
hood
nuts.
up. It's my hands. Yeah.
That's awesome. So, what are you currently working on now?
I'm working on a album cover for a band, and then I'm getting ready. I think I can't say specifically because, again, part of the excitement for these things is to have it happen. But I'm doing something that I've never done before is there's a playing card company.
Okay.
And I'm designing the backs of the cards.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's regular, it's ace,
Yep.
deuce, four, regular playing
Typical
cards.
playing cards.
Playing
You're
cards,
just doing
but
the backs of them.
yes, and
Okay.
it's an anniversary piece for them. Just found out about it. Sounds cool. It's a good
absolutely.
and the image that he is looking for is something I haven't done.
Okay.
And that's getting to be rare now. Where usually people call up and they go, "Yeah, can I get a
Something similar to this,
Yeah, right,
but not
right,
that.
right,
Yeah.
right,
Uh-huh.
exactly. So I'm leaning into a lot of things from the past where this one is like, hey, I even said to him, I go, dude, I never did a
Right.
and I was like, I'm excited already, and we haven't gotten anywhere yet. So
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Now you're also selling sketches and things of that sort online.
Yes.
Can you talk about like some of the sketches that you actually have
Sure.
online that are for sale?
So I sell sketches at the conventions, and I sell them online. The ones that I sell at the conventions are I have these quick sketches that I do.
Right.
There's Curly the skeleton.
Yep.
Slappy the dummy, and the haunted mask.
Gotcha.
And I have these versions of them that are quick, that I can do quick, and I do lots of them, and I push them out.
Oh, nice.
So I bring them to shows, and I sell them online.
Okay.
One of the things that I get a lot of people are looking for is they write to you and they say, hey, my favorite cover is Night in Terror Tower.
Yep.
And I go, okay, I'll redraw it in pencil, so you can get an original piece of art of your favorite Goosebumps cover. And
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, so those are fun. They've become somewhat popular, and I also sell regular Goosebumps prints.
That's great.
Yeah.
How can because obviously you also do commission work as well. So how can people connect with you in order to maybe purchase some of your commission or those sketches and things of that sort? Do you have a website?
Yeah. So best way is go through the website. That's where the store is built into the website, and that's Jacobus Studios.
Yep.
And you can also, if you can't remember that because Jacobus is a mouthful and nobody knows how to spell it, you can go onto Instagram and just say Original Goosebumps Illustrator.
Gotcha.
And that'll take you to everything. And they're all interlinked.
Okay.
And
Last but not least, if you can give advice to your younger self, okay, given all of the success, all of the products that you've put out there, all of the illustrations, if you can go back to that young guy back in high school, middle school, what have you, what would you tell him?
To chill out a little bit. So I spent a lot of my early days creating art and thinking that it was all crap. And there's a part of that that's kind of good because it forces you to get better. But I should have been able to find a little bit more of what I liked in there and take it down a couple of notches.
Gotcha.
I spent a lot of time angry at my art and, upset with things and, would drive myself a little kooky trying to get better. And there was a point later on where you just go, this is, you're doing the best you can. And it wasn't that people were ever saying, oh, I like everybody always kind of liked what I did,
Right.
but I didn't. So yeah, enjoy it. Like what you're doing. It's all going to be okay. Because to be perfectly honest with you, it's wonderful that people know who I am and know my name and recognize my art. But if I sat down, if you guys leave and I go and sit back down and go to do it and I dislike it, what a waste. What a waste of a life.
Right.
So, I got away from that very early on, but not when I was young.
Right.
And I truly enjoy what I do.
That's awesome. Tim, you have been such a great pleasure to interview. I really do appreciate it. Like I said before, your books, the R.L. Stine books, but your covers were, made a tremendous impact on me, growing up. And it's just a surreal moment. This podcast was able to get me into the doors to talk to you, and I just find it very, I don't know, I'm excited. And I hope that the kids, especially them watching, my children watching, I hope they really see that, you can really create something, something as small as a podcast, and you can really get into the doors and talk to people that really affected you in your life. And you were one of those individuals by way of books.
Well, this is cool that you're exposing them because you're actually the right age to have, you grew up in the 90s and here we are now. In the 90s, you couldn't do this.
No,
you're not coming to my house with a handful of equipment. And when you walk out with top drawer, high def, good looking, good sounding stuff. And by the time they get to be your age, I don't know what's going to be out there because I've been surprised every time I turn around. I go, wow, you can do that at home now, huh? Holy smokes. We shot a movie on our iPhone and you look at the movie, you go, holy, that's as good as any movie.
Yep.
So it's great to expose them to it. But the thing that's cool is you're going, you guys could be podcasters too. They're going to be doing something that we don't even have a name for yet.
You're right about that.
So that's where the real excitement is. But back to what you said, I appreciate more than you know that you still look back on this stuff because there was plenty of things you did when you were 11
of course,
that aren't that cool.
Right.
But this still stood the test of time.
Yes, it did.
And you still appreciate it. And that means the world to me.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. We got planes to catch. We ain't got time for the nonsense.